I am, of course, in Bangalore, and I think it's the same here in Bangalore. Should have been summer. It's pouring actually.
Hey, but Bangalore is so awesome. It's still, I was in Bangalore a week ago, and my God, the weather there's like 100 times better than Bay Area right now. Such a beautiful, beautiful weather.
It's gotten better now, Puneet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So if can somebody send me the link to this live stream, and I can just post it or tweet it, and then we can keep going.
I am doing that.
Okay. Thank you. And Virtus, I didn't get to know you. Tell me a little bit about you while we're setting up.
Okay, that's great. So I'm a product management professional. Been in product management for 13, 14 years. But before that, I was in a IISc startup. Startups were like my interests, and then I joined my prof soon after, in IISc. Was in that company for around 6 years. Tried to do a lot of things. In fact, we were competing against Skype. So you know how the competition was. So we were kind of beaten well. But that got me interested to product management, and then so I've been in the product management industry across various different industries, telecom, RPA, process mining, now AI ML and stuff like that.
Perfect. Well, I guess
we can start.
We'll start, Nehal.
Yes. So I'll request all the other participants to keep their system on mute for the first part. And when we open up for the discussion, I'll intimate, and then we can have a discussion with Puneet. Yeah.
And you're going to moderate, right? Like, or
Virtus will do that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
cool. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of the DeepTech Club members, founders, mentors, as well as the entire audience, listening live via YouTube. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Mr. Puneet Singh Soni to the Lighthouse Session series on product market fit, which is an initiative from NASSCOM's DTC. And I'm Virtus. I represent the core team of NASSCOM DTC. To just give you a little bit of introduction as to why we are doing this, to grow as a true product nation and to build what we call as the world class from India, which is a grand vision of NASSCOM. Our product startups need to focus a lot and have a much deeper and clearer understanding of the problems, needs of the target market, target segment, and then kind of build superior products, technologies, as well as solutions that will help them achieve sustainable profit and growth, which is a lot of focus, just not on valuation, but a lot of sustainable profit and growth. So how have great product companies accomplished that? And what do actually the founders do, or what do they not do, is also very important. So I'm sure a lot of our own DTC founders and mentors want to seek inputs and directions from some of the industry thought leaders. And we couldn't be more excited to have Puneet share his experiences and words of wisdom for startup success. Specifically for today's topic, we'll discuss about, does DeepTech itself provide the technology moat and sustainable competitive advantage? Does it or does it not? And we'll be looking forward to the views and thoughts of Puneet, as well as a lot of questions that our DTC founders could have. Now, coming to Puneet's introduction, obviously, he does not need any introduction. He's currently the founder and CEO of Suki, which is an AI-powered, voice-enabled digital assistant for doctors that helps them, enables them to be more productive, as well as, solving some of the biggest problems in healthcare. So if you look at it, basically, Suki is also a deep tech, startup company, and it's been a winner for Google's best AI/ML partner solution, recognized as one of the most innovative companies, best healthcare startup company, as well as Forbes top 50 innovative companies in the AI domain. You may also want to remember Puneet as the product leader who launched the Google apps, across mobile platforms. In his incredible career, Puneet has grown from a product leader to a product exec at Google, and now mentoring and advising some of the leading startups such as Razorpay, Headspin, Humantic AI. In fact, the list is actually very, very long. So it's an honor to have you, Puneet. We welcome you again. Puneet has been very accommodating He's taken time off from his busy schedule, and of course, very early morning for him. And he's agreed to speak with us at a very short notice. Extremely grateful. Thanks so much, Puneet, from the entire NASSCOM DTC community. The session would be for an hour. We'll have you, Puneet, talk about the topic for maybe 15 to 30 minutes. It's up to you, how you want to pace it. And the rest, we'll open it up for Q&A for our DTC founders and mentors who are participating live in our channel. Thanks so much, Puneet, and over to you.
Thank you for having me, and appreciate the warm introduction, Burgess. I think for those who know me, 8 in the morning can be pretty early. So I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that. I think that I wasn't really very sure what to expect when I was asked to speak here. I looked through the slides that my team had prepared, and I thought about the question. And I think that what would be most ideal is for me to walk you through how I thought a little bit about Suki, especially considering what the DeepTech moats could be, and where I think that it works, and where I think that the competitive advantage isn't really tech, and it has to be other things too. And then as we do that, think about all the questions you want to ask. Whether it's about how did you start this, or how would you actually factor that in your plans, and what is the sequence in which we look at this, and I'm happy to answer that. Before I kick off, I'll make another point, which is that around the time when we had started working on product initiatives within India also, like with Flipkart and things like that, product as a trade was still coming into its own. And there's a lot of different things that we had done to actually pull it all together, me and my team and others, and at least within Flipkart. And it's so exciting to see how far India has come now, and how it's probably the most vibrant market in the world. And a lot of it is because of the transition of people from building pure play services companies to building product companies. And so to me, this is a matter of personal pride and enjoyment to see actually the transition in the company, in the country. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about Suki. What I'm going to do is share my screen. Burgess, can you please enable the screen share so
Sure.
I can actually share? Thank you.
Sure.
So what I'll do is I'll share my screen. The team has pulled together slides to put together the story of Suki, especially where it comes to how did tech actually help sort out what we should do here. It can be, in my opinion, somewhat marketing-y. So we will try to actually focus our energy on the actual tech and product aspects of it, and not the, what does Suki do and the marketing aspects of it. So with that, let me again try. I have this, and hopefully everybody's able to see my screen at this point. So I'm going to hit slideshow. So this is the topic at hand, and we're going to keep it relatively broad. The key is to actually make sure that we can talk about general-based problems as you guys start companies of your own. So the first question to actually ask is, why did you even start Suki? What was the genesis behind this idea? There's a few different motivations that I had personally. One is I have this conviction that the most relevant, most interesting technology company ever built in the, in pretty much the history of tech is going to be in healthcare. And I also believe that that such a company has not yet been created. I think there are many companies that could vie to become those, many of them that we probably don't even know at this point. But whether it's in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, I believe there's going to be a company the size of a Google, a Facebook, a Netflix, Amazon that is going to be in healthcare. And if that is a conviction that I believe in, that it was pretty clear that when I would start a company, I would actually spend my time dabbling in this space. Now, there is a non-zero chance that Suki could become this company, but there is a non-zero chance that we could become this company. So it is worthy of actually making an effort. Now, once you've decided you want to actually do healthcare, the way I have thought about this is, how do you solve this particular equation? The equation is, what is a powerful constituency that has a huge issue of burnout of some kind, and the solution of which aligns with some deep tech trend. Okay, and to me, the powerful constituency was physicians. They are not the end all and be all of what we're doing, but they're definitely the starting point of what we were going to do. Physicians are a very powerful constituency in healthcare. They're burning out because of an incredible epidemic level stress on them. A large part of that stress is administrative burden and documentation burden. It's stress because of coding and various things that they have to do to make sure they get paid by insurance, especially in US. It is stress because for clinical care, you have to document all of these things, and there's also liability associated with that in US. But it's also stress because of the professionalism. They have to make sure that they actually document everything. They see an unbelievably large number of patients, and being able to track everything that's happening is very hard over time. And then finally, the pandemic hasn't helped anybody. It's made it a much, much, much worse issue. This stress and this epidemic is driven by certain different issues in US, and is driven by certain different issues in India, but it exists in both places. The solution for that will have slightly different nuances, but I do believe that Suki is a product that will be very important and impactful in US, and very important and impactful in India. So these are some of the statistics that people have seen. When I started the company, I learned that in 2016, the amount of money spent just in making sure that we could document everything about the patient was about $10 billion annually. That number has only grown since then, and we can't even fathom what that number is going to be in India. For a variety of things, don't think just in terms of the amount of money spent in tools that help documentation, but think about the downstream effects. The burnt out doctors, the patients who are not seen, who could have been taken care of and also been a source of revenue, the impact on healthcare, the quality of data that's created, that slows everything else down. That number can go from 10 to like $100 billion if it needs to, if you think about it from that perspective. So this is basically one of the motivations I had to start in this space. Now, all of you founders probably also need to factor in that whatever is the entry point to your play should generate something that inherently becomes a moat. And in my case, clinical documentation is where the majority of data is created by doctors. And so if I can get that data in a structured format before it goes to an electronic medical record from the horse's mouth directly, that becomes a resource I can use to actually then start building other features that can help doctors. And inherently now it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. So this was the reason to actually enter from a physician burnout point of view. Okay. Now, the other thing that I thought of when I started is I said, okay, if you're going to actually go build this, and you have to think about all the companies that are in this space already. The largest company in this space is Nuance. You should probably know of Nuance. It got bought by Microsoft for $20 billion. The second largest company in this space is M-Model. It got bought by 3M for $3 billion. Then there is a huge gap. And then there is all these mom and pop transcription services, scribes, companies that are pretending to be ambient solutions where there's just humans in the back kind of filling notes up, etc. So there's all these categories: voice to text, super affordable dictation, but users have to keep correcting things, transcription services, mom and pop stores, basically, ambient systems, basically the same as transcription services, except that it's got a veneer of technology on it. And then human scribes, people sitting right next to doctors actually typing things in. All of these have their pros and cons. Some of them are very expensive, some at high turnover. So when you're starting a company, you kind of want to do a lay of the land and see basically where you fit in this particular space. So we did this analysis. It was also obvious that electronic medical records were, very ungainly, were 90s style software. All of these software was also slightly older. You're basically dealing with a sector that has probably around 10 to 15 years behind where cutting edge tech is right now in the market. And the vision then developed from there for Suki. Suki's vision became to make healthcare tech assistive and invisible so that clinicians can focus on what they do best, which is clinical care. Okay, that became the broad mission we are on. Now, to make healthcare tech assistive and invisible, I can build clinical documentation software, I can build coding software, I can build electronic medical records, I can build patient engagement software, I can build clinical design, decision software, I can make clinical documentation optimization software. Every one of the things that I'm talking about, order entry software, is a $1 to $10 billion industry of its own. We had this mission to make healthcare tech assistive and invisible. The tip of the spear for us was voice. The first product we built is called Suki Assistant. The first skill of Suki Assistant was clinical documentation. So you kind of can see how the funnel goes from mission all the way to the absolute narrowest first thing that you will build to actually enter the market. And so the key here was to actually start thinking about how would AI be used to solve this problem. Now, all of you have seen this and know this. You know, everybody wants to use the phrase AI. A dog walking app right these days has AI in it. So it's a much maligned term. You know, to be able to actually use AI, you have to really specifically ask yourselves what problem you're solving. It's just a technique. It's not a company. So, you know, first was Suki is an AI-powered voice-enabled digital assistant for doctors. Think of it like a Siri for doctors, okay? It uses machine learning, it uses NLP, it uses natural language understanding to create very natural, accurate, personalized voice experiences. Once you give something like this to doctors, to build it, you end up actually building an intent extractor, a speech recognition system, a voice agent that can toggle between dictated content and commands. And I will show you how the product works live so you can understand this. That became the genesis of Suki Speech Platform. So now we have two product lines. One is Suki Digital Assistant, and the other is basically Suki Speech Platform. Digital assistant is used, voice assistant is used by doctors across health systems across the country, and soon, hopefully, in India too. And the idea is that their cognitive load goes away from technology, and they're focused on the patient. The Suki Speech Platform is now increasingly being used by other healthcare tech companies who want to add voice to their use cases. So between the Suki Assistant and Suki Speech Platform, effectively, we are on the endeavor to make all of healthcare tech assistive and invisible. I hope with this, you can get a sense of what a significantly large mandate this is, even though the starting point of it is very narrow, specific, and pointed. And that is actually super critical if you're going to actually build a product tech company. So here's what it does today. Suki has 4 skills today. One skill is that you can use it to do notes. And I will show you a video of how it works to understand, make sure you understand this. The second skill is its ability to be able to do information retrieval. So you should be able to say things like, hey, what medications has this patient been taking? Show me the allergies this patient has. Can you give me a sense of the family history of this patient? And it'll pop it up to you and give you that information. We also automatically do diagnosis coding, which is the way in which in US insurance pays back doctors and health systems. And then, of course, you can use Suki to dictate anywhere. So, that was what the prior generation of voice products used to do. You could click and just dictate. That's just a free feature within Suki today. All of these require a Suki speech platform, which basically uses a lot of machine learning and NLP, NLU for this natural experience that we built. So what I'm going to do now is just very quickly show you the product and then wrap it up so that you can ask questions and, take it in whichever way you all want to take it. So here, I'm going to just play this. This is going to be a video of the Suki assistant being used by a doctor. There's a lot of other things it can do. There's a lot of other features it has, but we wanted to keep it concise to something that will just quickly give you a sense of how the assistant today works for specifically clinical documentation, basic documenting the encounter the doctor and patient have.
Suki is a clinical digital assistant. Today, Suki helps doctors save time on notes across a diverse range of specialties and clinical settings.
Suki, show my schedule.
Suki works on your smartphone or computer with no extra hardware needed. Like a consumer voice assistant, think of Siri. It can understand natural language and carry out your instructions.
Suki, create a note for Camille Powers. Suki, copy the history from my last note.
Speech-to-text dictation is highly accurate and tuned to your usage with no need for special training.
Suki, edit the history. She presents today with a non-productive cough and subjective fever since yesterday with no known sick contacts.
Templates in Suki are customized for your practice.
Suki, insert a normal physical exam. Suki, change heart and lungs. Heart rate irregularly irregular with fine crackles heard throughout the lung fields bilaterally. Suki, assessment. Ms. Powers is here today with new onset of cough and is concerned about her risk of COVID given her medical comorbidities.
You can create a problem-based note by adding diagnoses to the assessment and plan.
Suki, the first problem is upper respiratory infection. Viral swab has been performed and the patient has been advised to self-isolate until she gets the result. Suki, next problem. Chronic atrial fibrillation. We will check a digoxin level for monitoring and continue Pradaxa. Suki, the last problem is interstitial pulmonary disease. She remains on chronic low-dose steroids and has an upcoming appointment with her pulmonologist. Suki, stop. Suki, I'm done.
Suki also helps you find the right ICD-10 codes for your note. You can either finalize your note immediately or choose the processing option, which provides even greater accuracy. When Suki integrates with your EMR, you have full access to your patient schedule, and notes are pushed automatically back into your system of record. Suki can also be used independently without an EMR. Documentation is just the beginning for Suki. Our vision is to make technology invisible and assistive for doctors so that you can focus on your patients. Suki is a clinical digital.
So that's pretty much it. I think that I will end this basically on this note and then hand it back to you all for questions. Think for a second about a world where a doctor will walk into a clinic and say, show my schedule. And then we'll say, Suki will say, here's the first patient you're seeing, and say, okay, well, can you give me a summary of, what Jane Roberts' history is? Suki will give that to you. Then you walk in and you say, Suki, pay attention. And then you talk to Jane Roberts, and basically the note, most of the note that Suki can guarantee will be automatically done. Maybe Jane Roberts had a X-ray that the doctor wanted to see. Then doctor will say, pull up that X-ray, prescribe doxycycline 5 milligrams over 3 weeks, change this one thing. And then after that, they will step out and basically say, Suki, I'm done. Now show me who the next patient is. This world where a doctor can engage with Suki, and as it gets more and more sophisticated, Suki can not just do clinical documentation, potentially also put together basic, diagnostic regimes for basic ailments, is not too far off. The data exists, and these are just the beginnings of like a very large assistive platform that can be built. In places like US, you're going to basically see this become true assistants that doctors will use all day long. And in the time that I've spent talking to you, 50 patient encounters across the country have happened, across 30 different specialties where people have been using Suki. In places like India, where the doctor-patient ratio is so skewed, such technologies could be also used to actually help assist, provide care directly to people over time. We have a really important mission. It is driven by tech. And I believe that especially in the Indian ecosystem, there are going to be a version of Suki for India, which will come out of this company that will potentially help with some of the healthcare, the next generation of healthcare tech that's going to show up in the country. So with that, I will stop. Varchis, I'll hand it back to you. Happy to answer any questions and go in any direction you all want to.
Thanks so much, Puneet. That was very insightful, getting to know the details of how Suki was born and what's your focus on the deep tech. That's actually very insightful. Thanks so much. I'll now, Nehal, can you, how can I see who has raised hands? Okay, Gaurav. So all the other founders, mentors, kindly, just raise hands, and then I'll see who is it and pick your name. So now, Gaurav, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Puneet. This was an awesome presentation. Helped us, know quite a lot about Suki and the awesome work, which you guys are thinking about. My question is, what are the key barriers which Suki has established or trying to establish while defining the solution to, so that it is hard to copy others who are coming behind you, or have 10 loads of money are not able to copy what you have built?
I think that I think it's a really good question. There are a couple of different things you should think about. So, I think the topic for this session was, can deep tech provide competitive advantages? Sure, it can. But can it provide a moat that will basically insulate a company from competition? No, it can't. Deep tech's job is to allow you to, we can use it to build solutions and products that are compelling. But there has to be a larger strategy that actually inherently creates these moats, Gaurav. And so, for example, if you think about Suki, why would Suki be different from all these big, large, successful companies that have already been there for 20 years? And how do you think we can actually be, can carve our own space and do things? I think it starts by actually knowing who your user is. So in our case, you're a product company. You should be able to define who that user type is. Every pixel in Suki is in the service of the clinician. Do you know of a healthcare tech company that actually says that it lives and dies primarily for doctors? I don't know of one. And so the first competitive moat comes from the inherent culture you create, where you actually are clear to the company that you will live and die for this specific kind of user. And because you do that, no matter how much other people talk and say this, you cannot change a company's intrinsic culture to start switching to thinking about a different user that easily. And that becomes inherently a moat. So we can talk about tech, but at the end of the day, the biggest moat a company has is usually its culture. So that's one. Second is user centricity, system centricity. You have to have a deep, and I believe Amazon is a really good example of this. There's a few other companies that do that, a deep focus on users and systems. And if you build that culture from start, then you have a chance of building a moat. Even though it looks cliched, believe me when I tell you that like 98% of the companies say this but never really practice it. User centricity actually is a key part of your processes, your structure, your technology, your strategy, your communication style, and that's another thing. Third, in our case, obviously, because we are a consumer product for professionals, you can see how the product works. There is a deep focus on design and UI. It's very surprising to me, and I've seen this over decades now, that great design is not that easy to copy. You can copy a card, you can copy like some pattern, but the overall vibe of a product, that design is very hard to actually mimic. So that matters. Finally, in our case, we're a broad-based assistive platform. There are companies that have built dictation systems. There are companies that have built coding systems. There are companies that have built, but we are actually a platform where every one of these things are just skills and we keep adding them. When you inherently start from that vantage point, it is very hard for people to actually redo all their products and rebuild it into one cohesive pattern where you can just use the same product for many skills. So that becomes a big moat. And then, we're multi-platform. You're on iOS, you're on Android, you're on Windows, you're on web. And by the way, they all work with each other and the same things work everywhere. So these are all varieties of different things that have intrinsically created moats. Now, remember, all the companies in our space have made choices not to do any of these things. Okay. They do a lot of things, other things that are very good, but they didn't do any of these things. So inherently, this is our differentiation. This is our moat. And then on tech side, obviously, we have a cloud-based audio pipeline. We have a voice agent that is actually very sophisticated that switches between dictated content and commands. We have a 99.5% accurate intent extractor. We have a self-learning dictation model. This is patented stuff. That gives us weight to be able to do the cultural and product strategy things, which actually create the differentiation. The tech doesn't create differentiation. The tech enables differentiation. So I hope I answered your question, Gaurav, but that's basically a slightly long-winded way of answering it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Puneet.
Okay, thanks, Puneet. Now, Prem Prasad, you can go next.
Hello, just a minute. Hello, Mr. Puneet. Thanks a lot for an excellent presentation. It was indeed very interesting. I do work, I'm a startup founder, I'm into tech. I also work in tiny ML or edge computing. My question is simple. Like, I have been trying to use text-to-speech synthesis to develop a product for my e-learning for my educational company. And how do we incorporate NLP in such a way that we actually are able to? The idea is to produce an enhanced teaching platform where the teacher's limitations are overcome by enhanced AI capabilities. So the student doubts and some enhanced explanations, including virtual explanations, are actually given by the AI platform instead of rather than the teacher. So that's the whole thing. So suppose say you have a code, a Python code running, teaching text to speech, using text to speech to automate something, like say a light bulb through serial connection with an Arduino or with a Raspberry Pi. Then can we incorporate NLP within the system where we are able to explain the algorithm itself to the students on the system without even in the absence of a teacher?
I mean, the reaction I have is, how would I know? Because at the end of the day, the problem, the space, the tech. What I can tell you is that you actually should worry a little less about incorporating a particular kind of technology into the solution. And you should probably worry about just building the right solution. And then ask yourself, what tech can enable that solution? Sometimes what happens, and I'm not saying this happens to you, by the way, I'm sure you're doing an incredible job. Sometimes what happens with some founders is they're like a tech in search for a solution. I got something I know very well. Now let me go and find something that I can solve using it. That is a slightly inverted way of doing things. What you're doing actually is probably the right way, which is saying, here's a problem in education. I really want to solve it. It's very important to me to figure out how to crack it. Now, here's the product I need to build to solve it. And for that product, you have to ask yourself what technologies are needed. If NLP is needed, good, use it. If NLP technologies are needed, use it. You need speech recognition, use it. If you need an intent extractor, build it. But that is a secondary point. That's an enabler. The first thing that you need to know is exactly what product you're building. Then you need to go out and look for how to build it. It may be that in your case, natural language processing technologies actually are going to be very beneficial, or it may be that you'll find another way to do it. It's almost incidental. What matters is if the right product is built.
All right. Just one more question. What's your best platform for natural language processing? I'm working with Spacey. So is that the best method to go forward?
Yeah, I wouldn't be the best person to answer that because we have used like 6 different variations over the last few years. I think that if you send this message to me on my LinkedIn, I think I posted to it. I'll ask my CTO to actually respond to you because I'm not even sure which one he actually uses right now. He dabbles on like probably 4 or 5 of them. So send me a message there and I'll have my CTO respond to you.
Most certainly. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Okay, Guhan, you're next.
Yeah, hi Puneet.
Hi, Guhan.
Puneet, we are again tech-based. I'm part of a tech-based startup focused on AML-based observability of all infrastructure and other applications. So we are able to expand in the Indian market, but it's a very high-level question. So what does it take to get into the US market, which is something like we have been trying for the last couple of years, and somehow maybe due to COVID, we are really not able to push. So what does it take to enter the US market?
I think that, let me try to answer this question in the reverse way. Okay, I'm a company that's actually relatively well established in the US market. What does it take to enter the Indian market? Right, for me, I think that there are going to be idiosyncrasies of every country that you have to think through, but the general framework is actually very similar. I'm trying to enter the Indian market. So the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, the problem that you're solving manifests itself in what particular way in that particular market. There are going to be certain sophistication or lack thereof, depending on which market you're looking at, that may be inherent. So then you have to kind of tweak that and actually make sure that you can understand if your solution is going to actually be applicable as it sits. Typically, what happens is you realize that the base platform can work, but there are changes that you'll have to bring into the product to actually tweak it for that particular country or geo or market you're walking into. What I have realized is that more important than product, almost all the time, especially in startup world, it's more important to have a good sense of go-to-market. So, trust me, as a person who's built product for so long, I'll tell you the first lesson I'd learned was that product was actually important, but not as important as go-to-market. If you can nail go-to-market, then you can actually figure out what to do with product, but you can never really create go-to-market for a particular product. So in US, as you go in, you should probably ask yourself, what's the right go-to-market, which means which segment do you want to attack? What kind of user would that be? Who would you sell to? How much would you charge that person or that entity? What your margins would be? What channels are you going to use? How do I get access to those channels? If you can answer those 7 or 8 questions, then you have basically the beginning of a go-to-market. And at that point of time, you can start actually asking yourselves, how do you tweak your product to actually run through that go-to-market? So to me, step 1, identify go-to-market. Step 2, identify tweaks you need to make in your product now to actually be able to address the problems in that market that you're attacking. And then you will have to probably go there in person and actually establish presence, walk the streets, talk to people, do the work that you probably are doing in India here too, including building a small team here, and then you have a shot. If you reverse it, that's basically how we are thinking about Suki in India. We believe that Suki in India is going to be an even bigger product than Suki in US. The impact it can have is even more wide-ranging. So first, we have to understand what's going on in the Indian ecosystem. What is the percentage of penetration of electronic medical records? How many people, what kind of issues we have? What are the doctor-patient ratios? A lot of people actually do paper-based charting. How do we actually deal with that? Then we have to look at the political and policy ecosystem. Ayushman Bharat is becoming an entity. What UPI did to fintech, there could be something similar that would happen in healthcare tech soon. What exactly should we do? How should we participate in that? What is our seat at the table? Then you have to start asking yourself, what is the version of Suki you're going to actually enable for India? And then, and we're already in the process of establishing a pretty large team in India. And my team in India is not necessarily going to be a team that just builds tech. It's also going to be a team that's going to build product and deploy and build business there. And so these steps have to be taken when you enter markets. And if you take them in the wrong order or you miss a step, you end up just wasting a lot of money and not really getting the fruits you want. So I hope I gave you some sense, at least from my experience.
Yes, Puneet, that really helps. Just to give you more information, we are a fintech-based startup focused on, it's primarily in the B2B segment. So, and here in India, we have almost all the top banks, but somehow we are trying to see if we can enter the US market, which is still deluding us.
Well, you have to go to US and sit there. And then hopefully you'll find a way. Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you, Puneet.
Okay, I'll open it up for anyone to kind of ask a question to Puneet.
Yeah, hi, this is Jimmy. Can you hear me?
Hey, Jimmy. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Puneet. So, I've been, we connected on LinkedIn. I've been tracking Suki and you for several years. So great progress. We are in a conversational AI platform, working a lot on speech to text and voice AI, basically. So I was just curious to know which languages are you supporting right now in Suki? And especially when you're talking about entering Indian market, would you be adding those language stack, etc., or you would rather be working with, open to work with partners like us on speech to text for some Indian languages?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, first of all, always open to conversations. The magic of platforms like these and also the work that you all are doing here in NASCOM and other places is that you provide a platform for entrepreneurs to interact with each other. And to be fair to all entrepreneurs, you guys are all on a very hard journey. I think I was mentioning to somebody we were giving a talk yesterday and somebody asked, well, what's the experience like? And I said, well, being an entrepreneur is a soul crushing experience. Don't think of it like some very romantic experience where you're running around, everything is always bed of roses. I know as soon as I said that, a bunch of you smiled because you guys all have the same experience. And so always happy to talk to folks and find ways to collaborate, etc. I'm a big believer, Jimmy, in absolute minimum delightable product. What's the least you can build to actually test out a system and make sure it works? And then after that, you actually scale up. In US, we decided that we would build basically just clinical documentation and only for one particular specialty. And then we expanded it to many, and then we expanded to different settings, and then we added coding and we added a bunch of other things. And now suddenly it's a broad-based platform. When we enter India, we will lean on what our strengths are, which is English for now. That means that it will be a very, very small section of the market that we can attack. We'll probably lean on a particular segment. There is a little bit of a question of whether we will lean on a segment from the perspective of assisting the doctor, or potentially even having a repository, a pseudo light medical record system for the doctor to use. So those are all the things we will think about. There will be a time where vernacular languages and others will start mattering to us. But for now, it's probably going to be English. Once it's all vetted, tested, makes sense, and lines up with where India as a policy, India polity is also going, then I think that there will be a lot of other languages and other areas we'll have to get into. Because India is obviously not English only by any means whatsoever. You're muted, Jimmy, just in case.
Am I still muted? Can you hear me? Yeah,
we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, thanks, Puneet. Would happy to talk to you on LinkedIn, and also maybe schedule a demo call, with your team to know more about Suki. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Gaurav, did you raise your hands?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, thanks. So, Puneet, what are the key North Star matrix which you and your product team are tracking for Suki?
Excellent question. There are so many. And they're depending upon what you're trying to track, there are different things. So when you actually say you want to track the overall business, then you want to actually be, tracking at regular intervals, things like paying users, you want to track recurring revenue rates, you want to track, onboardings, you want to track, churn, you want to track retention. But when you're tracking it from the perspective of the core product, then you want to track, daily active usage, weekly active usage, monthly active usage, which, by the way, because doctors have odd schedules, not any one of them is enough to actually understand what's going on in the product. You want to track per specialty metrics. You want to track the number of commands used. You want to see which commands are used more, which are used less. You want to track MAU, DAU for like the specific commands so that the product features are actually used very well. We also track basically adoption rate. We take a look at the cohort of users and how many of them actually stuck to the product and how many dropped off. Remember, voice products have a natural barrier, like 60-70% is the max you get. 30% end up not just cannot use voice products. So there is, you have to kind of think about that too. So depending upon these, there are business metrics to track, there are product metrics to track, and within product metrics, there's product strategy metrics to track, which allow you to decide if the features you're building actually make sense and how do you actually drive them. An example of this is every time somebody says something to Suki and Suki fails, then we have a signal, an event called agent cancel. So you want to track agent cancel. And believe it or not, 80% of the time, agent cancel does not mean that Suki was wrong. It just means that the user asked something from Suki that Suki had no idea what to do. It's just outside its abilities right now. So that gives us a sense of what to build next. So you have a lot of these different buckets of metrics, and my team knows about this. I obsess about these metrics. I think I look at some variation of these metrics, believe it or not, every hour when I'm awake. Every hour, as soon as this meeting overs, I'll flip my phone and I'll check all the metrics. I just do that. I'm obsessed with that. And there's a straight line between the decisions we make in this company and where we go and our metrics. The other thing I will say to you is that the other area that can really be beneficial for us all to consider is to build a channel within the company where user feedback is displayed publicly. Okay. So in Suki, for example, we have a Slack channel called user feedback, and every single user, any feedback that comes from them gets pasted into that automatically. And now think of a continuous stream of basically praise and criticism, and think about the fact that every single person in the company can have access to it. It really builds a culture of user centricity, and it builds pride in what you do. So people track that channel all the time. They try to solve problems there. You engage the company in customer success rather than building an organization that separately only does customer success. So metrics and user feedback, the two big mainstays of actually building a good, successful company, in my opinion.
Great. Thank you very much. Really helped that. Thank you.
That was very insightful, Puneet. Anyone next? Mentors?
I think Prem's asking, can you give me some book recommendations? I'm looking at the chat.
Okay.
On AI, please. Any AI topic that enlightened you? Honestly, I try my level best never to read anything related to what I do. There is enough in life that kind of subsumes you as an entrepreneur. And if you end up actually reading books in the same area, then your mind will blow up, it'll be crazy. There are a couple of things that are interesting from a philosophical point of view that I enjoyed. I don't know if you have read a blog called Wait But Why. Here's the name. I don't know if anybody's read it. Go check it out, and check out the blog post he wrote on artificial intelligence. By the way, I warn you, you should check it out sometime on a Friday, because once you start reading that stuff, you're not going to get up till Monday, and you will destroy your time. So just make sure that you find the right time to do it. Stuff like that interests me. It's interesting to read the philosophical trends around where artificial intelligence is going to go and where we are in that journey. It's relatively early days, but overnight it will become a completely different world. And that is generally the pace of technology, right? Things are very, very slow till they change overnight. And we are in the very, very slow period, but there is impending change coming for us. So I would say that is a good blog to read. Other than that, honestly, I don't really, I haven't read much books on AI. I try to read things that are completely different from the space I work in.
Sorry, can you repeat that? It's called Wait, what?
Wait, but why?
Wait, but
just
all right.
Yeah, Google it. You will find it. Wait, but why? You will love it. Go read. This is not like some deep tech blog on hidden Markov models and things like that. So, but this is more of the philosophy of artificial intelligence. Yeah. And I think whatever we are doing, Prem, AI is going to be a technique that we will use one way or the other. Yeah. So having an understanding of the philosophy, the biases, where it can go, can be very helpful.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course.
Varshas, can I go next? This is Anupam here.
Sure, Anupam, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Puneet, a great talk. I have two questions. The first one is related to technology. You mentioned Nuance. I was with IBM earlier. Now I know Nuance has been bought over by Microsoft. But it seems that Suki made their own speech recognition engine. So was that a conscious decision that you tested Nuance, it was not good enough? Or you wanted to create a moat by having your own engine?
Suki uses a combination of its own internal speech recognition systems and some third-party speech recognition systems. The reason you need a combination is because, first of all, we have some good partners who actually have good speech recognition systems. Second, there are areas, like radiology, pathology, others that are such specific speech recognition needs that not a general purpose model can actually fit there. And I think for the foreseeable future, we will use a combination of our internal system and external. The bigger question is, why not use, Nuance or somebody else? First of all, you're competing with Nuance, second, Suki is a digital assistant for doctors. Speech recognition systems and intent extractors are a critical piece of that allows us to be flexible and do things in ways that we may not be able to do with third-party systems. But the core product is actually, you could switch a speech recognition system under the hood within Suki, and Suki will still behave the same way.
Absolutely.
So therefore, the core product is a higher order construct, but internally we use both first party and third party.
Excellent, I got it. And then one very different question: why did you name Suki? I'm always curious when I see kind of different names than what your business is.
Yeah, I always wish I had like some really nice emotional story. Like there was a girlfriend who left me or some crush I had. But unfortunately, none of that really happened here. It's a very, it's a technical concept, which I think that the nerds and all of us will be very happy to hear. Basically, if you're building a voice product, then you need a wake word. If you need a wake word, then the wake word has to have very less like false positives, and the accuracy, it should be very high of its identification. To do that, you need to have vowels and consonants in such a sequence that basically you can minimize false positives. This is why you have Cortana, you have Alexa. Google is a poor wake word, so we added OK to it when we built that. So OK Google. Suki is one of the smallest words you can come up with that actually has the right consonants and vowels, so that the wake word is very highly accurate. And the second thing that's important is that it should be a word that is not culturally in the markets you want to attack. So in US, if I, for example, call the product Robin, then, in every clinic, there's somebody called Robin. They will call Robin and this thing will wake up and start recording. It'll be a privacy hazard. So you want a wake word that has high accuracy and is culturally off. And unfortunately for us, that is the technical nerdy reason why Suki is called Suki. But I do have this belief that at some point I want to come up with some emotional story that will make a much better overall story for this question.
Got it. I think so. It was a wake word which made it happen. I got it. Thank you.
Once you have the wake word, then that's the brand, and that's the brand, and that's the company, and then now you have Suki speech platform and all of these things.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, we're just on time. I'll see, Puneet, if there is one more, maybe we can take it. Otherwise, I think it was a fantastic session. Anyone up for it?
I'll take it very quickly. I think there is a chat thing there. What are the key aspects to consider when you're going to a new geography? I think I answered that, Sekar. And if you were not there, maybe you can scroll back into the recording and watch it. But basically, start with what problem are you solving? Ask yourself if your product can actually do it. Then look at go-to-market. Then ask yourself what cost you'll have to pay in terms of changing your product and will you be able to maintain it. Then, you have a shot at actually considering this. That's in a nutshell the answer, but there's obviously more detail to this.
Sorry, if I may add an extension to that question, Puneet, to what Shekhar has asked. So when you scale to a new geography, you're gonna work with a new set of people who are from a very different culture, background, etc. So from a people perspective, how do you scale culture? Especially if you're a small team, then you're going to hire an entirely new set of people who are going to work in a new time zone also, with maybe one founder in one region and the other in the other. How do you avoid this becoming siloed? I know there could not be one single answer, but I'd like to hear what your experience is when you're there in the US and now building a team in India.
That makes sense. And if you don't mind, after that, I'll probably log off because there's going to be a very upset team that will be like, you're late to my meeting. So I'll. It's a very, very good question. How do you scale culture, and let alone scale culture across your team, but also across geographies? First and foremost, you have to live the culture. You, as in the founder, have to live the culture. The hammer that we wield is very heavy. So we have to be very cognizant about how to leverage it. But the best way to leverage it is if you can actually just live it. And by living it means if I actually spend time 8 times a day looking at product metrics, then people over time start looking at product metrics too. If I respond to every single piece of user feedback internally, people start looking at user feedback channels too. If I make it a point to ensure that the user is always the core focus of every strategic decision we take, then people start doing that too. If you're humble, people start emulating that. If you're arrogant, people start emulating that. So the first part of culture, to be honest, in a company, the burden falls on you to live the culture you want to live. That's one. Second is that when you start scaling that, repeating the same message again and again and again and again is super critical. People think, oh, well, I've said this, how many times do I have to repeat it? The truth is that the core job of a CEO or a founder or a leader in a company is to repeat the same message, the same vision, the same cultural attribute, every opportunity get at regular intervals to completely ingrain that into the psyche of the company. This is important. You can't just write it somewhere and forget about it. And then finally, I'll say that when you go to new geographies, the most important key consideration you should have, who's the first couple of people you hire. Okay. The first couple of people you hire, you should hire yourself. They are people who should be considered effectively founders. And they should be treated like founders. They should be given autonomy like founders. They should be given resources like founders would be given, co-founders would be given. So now ask yourself, you're in India and you want to start an office in US. The bar for you to start the office in US is to find a person who's co-founder level to start that office. Until you find that person, you're just taking a big risk. When you find that person will hire the right people and will propagate the right culture and be a manifestation of your inherent culture in that market too. So that should be the bar. You have to hit that bar. If you don't hit that bar, you're going to build a silo team. Finally, in US, India like situations, what I've learned very quickly is take something that's very important and it's central to the company, something really critical, and give it to India if you are a US based company or vice versa. Okay. So imagine a product feature or an area that without which the company is going to die. It's existential. Give that product to the India team. Because if there is distance, the best way to reduce distance is to give people something so important that you have no option other than to actually collaborate deeply with them. It gives them autonomy. It treats them with respect. It puts trust in their hands. And more importantly, now every aspect of your company will desperately work closely with them because they have to. This is the key thrust of the company. So I would say those are some techniques you can use to build a scalable culture.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Puneet. It was a wonderful session. I know you have to run. I'm not going to take too much of time, but others in the DTC community. So on behalf of them, thanks a ton, and looking forward to some more sessions from you, Puneet.
Well, best of luck. I hope everybody succeeds. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.